Picture this: a con artist, a nobleman, and a vigilante walk into a bar. Welcome back, Book Dragons. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I am reviewing a book series for you. So we're going to get right to that, but before we do, if you are looking to find me in other places, make sure that you are scanning this QR code here on the screen, or you can find a link that will send you to a page that has all of my different links on it where you can click and find me, okay? Today I am reviewing the Rook Rose Trilogy by M.A. Carrick. This is the pen name of two authors, Marie Brennan, who you may be familiar with from the Lady Trent series or the Natural History of Dragons, and Alec Helms. It is a Victorian-esque story of a city mixed up in class wars between the native Brazilian people and the Levantine nobles who now rule their city. The city is besieged by a mysterious vigilante, infighting among the nobility, and a con woman who is determined to infiltrate a noble house. And as you can see from one of the covers here, the story is centered around masquerades, both literal and metaphorical. Most of the characters in this story are really top-notch, really well developed. There's a few minor characters that felt a little bit one-dimensional at times, but overall I was really impressed with the characters. So I'll briefly tell you about some of the main characters. One of them is Wren. She is our primary main character of the story, and she was born into a Brazilian peasant family. Her mother died young, and Wren eventually got mixed up with the wrong crowds and began a life of street crime. She eventually concocts a plan to present herself as an illegitimate child to one of the noble houses. So at different points in the story, she might be known as Wren. She might also be known as Renata Viridax, who is a noble in House Trementis, and she also goes by the name of Arenza Linskaya, who is a Sorsa, and Sorsas are more or less fortune tellers. There's more to it than that, but that's the gist of it, and you'll find out more about that throughout the story. Wren is also accompanied by her friend Tess, who is masquerading as her servant as part of the con, and she also has another good friend that they both grew up with named Sedge, and he makes various different appearances throughout the series as well. They all became friends because they were tied up in the same knot, which is a term that refers to a street crime gang. We also meet Gray Serrato, and Gray is a really fascinating character. He starts out the story as a member of the Vigil, which is the police force in the city of Nadezra, and he is Brazilian, but he is an outcast because they see him as a knot-breaker for joining the Vigil, which tends to cater to the nobility. There's also Darasi Vargo, and Darasi grew up on the streets, but he has learned to make himself useful so that all manner of people will seek him out when they need things done. So he's become that go-to guy. He's well known in society, talks a big game, and Darasi's just a great character. I really loved Vargo a lot, and he also has a pet spider, so it would seem. And I'm not going to go into any other details besides that, because it would spoil a lot of the story. There's also Denia Trementis, and she is the matron of House Trementis, and her children, Liato and Juna, are also part of House Trementis and figure heavily into the story. And then there are two mysterious vigilantes in this story, the Rook and the Rose, and they are Brazilian folk heroes and local legends. And I got very strong vibes, both of Batman and Robin, you know, your classic vigilante duos, but also the Phantom of the Opera. It just had that feel, and I don't know if it's the Victorian setting that just like gives me that feel, but I got a lot of Phantom of the Opera vibes as well. And, you know, at various points throughout the story, I was wanting to sing Masquerade, painted faces on parade, masquerade. And sorry, yeah, you get the picture. Anyway, it was so great. I had a blast. The vigilantes were one of the best parts of the entire trilogy. So I just really, really enjoyed their characters. The magic in this world is kind of twofold. It involves tarot card reading, and the tarot system was specifically designed for this story, so it's got a lot of unique and cool elements to it. And then there's numinatria, which involves inscribing symbols in different parts of the city, maybe on walls, maybe on doorways, different things like that. And by doing so, it can do different things. So at one point in the story, there is a new charter championed in the legal house called the Synchrote, and that charter involves inscribing a numinat for cleaning the water that comes in through the waterways, so that it's actually drinkable by the people. So numinatria can do different things, and there are people who are specifically trained as inscriptors to create these numinats. And at different points in the story, the tarot system and the numinatria can be combined to alleviate curses on different houses. They can also allow you to enter into what is called Azrai's Dream, which is kind of a shadow world. And it's just really cool how they tried to combine those elements and bring them together. So even though the tarot system and the numinatria are separate, they can be combined at different points. This story really handles its themes well. You've got themes of social disparity, racial and class tension. There are elements of police brutality by means of the vigil in the city. Vigilantism, of course, plays a big part in this story. People who have taken it upon themselves to right the wrongs that have been done in the city, primarily the wrongs that they see having been done by the nobility. And there's also a theme of political exploitation of common resources. So resources that you think should be common to all people and available to all people are exploited by politicians. And this is seen primarily in this story through water politics. Water rights. Who has the rights to the water? Who can claim the right to create the numinat for clean water? Different things like that. So there's some really great themes that are explored in this story. So let's talk about pros and cons. One thing that I really liked in this story was the world building. And there's a very small scope to this world, which I think really helps, because you can take this one city that everybody is living in pretty much for the majority of the story, and you can build out all the intricacies of this city and the politics and the different classes, things like that. So I have really enjoyed that part of it. Most of the characters were really, really interesting. My favorites were, of course, the Rook and Rose, but also Vargo just grew on me so much throughout the story. At the beginning of the story, he was kind of a real ass, but he just grows on you. He's very endearing as the story goes on, and all of the things that he's had to go through in his life to get to where he is, and all the heartache and trauma that he has personally experienced. As you begin to learn that about him, he just really shines. I really enjoyed the magic system as well. The tarot system that was created for this story was really unique, but it still had familiar elements to what we know of classic tarot readings. So that was kind of cool. And then, of course, inscribing the symbols is very cool as well. There were some really intense riot scenes. There were also some really intense duel scenes, which I thought was awesome. Especially duels involving the Rook were just absolutely outstanding. If I have any cons about the story, it would mainly be two things. The first one is that some of the characters gave up their secrets a little bit too fast in certain situations, I personally think. I like it when characters don't put all their cards on the table right away, and I think there were a couple of times where it just seemed like the characters gave up a little bit too much information and kind of shot themselves in the foot as a result. The other con that I have is, even by the end of the book, I didn't really feel like I understood the magic system very well. Now, it's not a hard magic system by any means that you would expect from like a Brandon Sanderson or something like that, but it's also not a soft magic system. So it's kind of right in the middle. It's got elements you have to understand about it, but it does some just really flashy things, and I just wish I had understood it better by the end of the story. It didn't detract from the ending at all, but at the end of the trilogy, I just felt like I wanted more from the magic systems. That's just my personal opinion. I still think the magic system was done really well, and I think I might understand the magic system a little more on a reread. And I do think this is a very rereadable trilogy. I would definitely recommend anyone who's already read it to reread it at some point. I know I probably will, because I just loved the world and the characters, and everything was just so unique and different about this series, and I like that. I like that a lot. So as far as my rank for the series, I would put it in my Horde tier. I absolutely loved it. I'm really happy I own it. It was definitely worth the money and worth my time reading, and I definitely think that you should read this series. And it's a good series for buddy reading. It offers a lot of different things that you can talk about with somebody you might be buddy reading it with. And I did. I buddy read this series with Angie the Bookaholic, and we had some really fun discussions. We are going to be doing a spoiler live stream for this at some point in the near future. I'm still trying to work out some dates and get back to her on things like that so that we can plan it, but I'm really excited to talk more in depth about it with her. And yeah, guys, I highly recommend it to anyone, especially if you like vigilantes and you like Victorian type settings. I just think you're really going to love this story. So let me know in the comments below if you read the series, what you thought of it. If you haven't read it, or maybe you've only read the first book and you haven't continued on yet, let me know in the comments below maybe any questions that you have on it that I can answer in a non-spoilery way. And if you've kind of been on the fence with the series, but this video has helped you, let me know that too. I'd love to know that this video has been of value. And so I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Make sure you guys read more books, and I will talk to you very soon.